Hey guys, this is Danny. I'm here to talk about a new script that I've created called MashOpErator. It was in response to a Jakob Hack video about some discontinued plugin that basically allows you to shuffle, like buffer, shuffle, aim and break. And he made a call out to developers to make him an AUV3 basically, but I figured it might not be actually a too difficult task for Mosaic to handle. So I've created a Mosaic script that will let you do that, and I'll go through the features and setup now. Also, originally I set it up for Koala, but actually it's a lot easier to use with Drambo. So I'll start off showing Drambo, and then I'll probably, depending how long this is, whether it's a second video or not, go into the Koala setup. The advantages of Koala is that you can use it with a round robin script like Eucalyptus by Aaron, ADG, because it focuses on bank A 16 pads, but we'll get to that in a bit. So basically I'll show you what it does. The first thing I just need to do is set up Drambo. So here it is. I'll put it here. You can put it in the top slot, or you can put it down there. I like to put it there, just like if it can exist there, it means that it can receive an input. So because I use it for other things like envelope flowing and stuff like that, then I usually put it in the effects slot. Here I'll load up Mosaic, and I will load the script. So the first thing you need to do is route the script to Mosaic to Drambo, and then in Drambo we need to just create a Flexi Sampler, and to illustrate what this actually does, let me just load up a loop of some sort. I'm just turning my volume up a bit. So this one, maybe. Right, I'll load that. So first thing is, when I press play, these 16 slices are going to play. Now, I did this just to illustrate that you can hear all it's doing is going up chromatically on chromatic steps. So you can use it with any sampler that works chromatically, in this case from note 48, which is C2 or C3, depending who you ask. So the nice thing about Drambo is that you can just tap on the sample, and because this is already 1 or 2 bars, it's good to use a pre-sliced sample, and you click edit and set slices, and then there's a non-destructive 16 or 32 slice, let's say 32. So what this will now do is play the first 16 slices when I press play. No, it won't, because the next thing you have to do is change this from offset to note. So instead of a chromatic sample, it's actually changing it to a note per slice, and now it will. Okay, so now it's looping the first 16, and what you can then do is this. Okay, so let's go to some of the settings on the right here. By default, it's 1/16, and this is set to like 120 BPM. Let's go up to 160, say, and see what happens. Okay, so what you can do is go to 1/4 quantize, so now it will go much slower. Or you can go to, 132. which will go silly fast. Which, depending on your sample and your BPM, is whether you want to actually go that high. If you're actually at half tempo and you want to go like up to drum and bass, like my example, which I'll slice on the end of this, yeah, you can go to 32 from 80 to 160, or you can actually use it at hip hop speed. There's actually no reason not to use it for anything but drum and bass. So okay, so moving on, this is the number of steps that are played. So it's either 4, 8, or 16. And you'll see that when it goes to 4, it will just play the first 4 notes. And then if I go to 8, it'll play the first 8. Okay, so if I go back to 4, this is a good opportunity to talk about the banks at the bottom right here. Basically, you'll see that at the top it's playing the first 4 slices. If I go to bank 2, it'll play the second 4 slices. So you can actually not touch the squares, but just flip between banks if you wanted to. Okay, so this dynamically changes between, so when there's 8 banks, potentially. It depends on the size of your sample, but the idea was that using Koala, you've got 64 slices in 4 banks. So if you wanted to use bank A, B, C, and D for 4 different samples, that's something you can do, which is easier in some ways to do in Koala. But with this, you can actually have 4 different samples. Anyway, I'll do another video about more ways to use this. So basically on 16 steps, you've got 4 potential banks, but because this is only a 32-step sample, it will only have 2 banks in the sample. So if you go higher than that, it will just repeat the last slice. And then if I go to the bank 3, it's actually just repeating the highest note, because any incoming note that's higher than what it's playing just triggers the last note. So another thing you can do with a shift button, if I press shift and then press any of these buttons, it will repeat it. So the last setting is the free button or sync. So at the moment it's just completely free of time. So if I show you, if I start this with the metronome, you'll see that it's in sync with a metronome. But I'm going to move the starting position and it will stay out of sync. So you see the snare's actually starting on the 1 now. So, which is fine. Because you can do a fill and then bring it back in. So that's kind of the point. But originally, and I have to admit, I use this a lot less than I thought I would. Originally, this was in sync. So what happens with this is that it will stay locked in sync, and you'll see it's a different color to show the sync. And then to actually put in a bit of extra part, you can just hold instead of tap. Because if you tap, it will carry on in sync. So let me demonstrate that. So it's it's almost like having rails on in the bowling alley. You can't make it unless you hold. But now you see where the yellow is. And then it drops back on the 1. So the yellow stays in sync with the tempo regardless of what you do. Which makes it kind of easier to fall back in. but it makes it kind of less interesting, and you have to hold onto the button. So I don't really use that mode that much. Okay, just a quick side note. I just went off and recorded the Koala example and then remembered that I didn't cover anything about the Flexi Sampler, which is some of the stuff that I'm going to show in the video that will follow. Basically, the pitch knob here is dynamic, as is the speed knob, and non-destructive. So again, in Koala, you'd have to take individual slices, reverse them, change their pitch and all that sort of stuff. In Drambo, it's all dynamic. So what it allows us to do is this. So if I just change the pitch knob, if you go to loop ping pong, then instead of just playing a slice and ending it, it will reverse, so then you get less gaps. Let me demonstrate that. If basically it's going faster than it can play the whole slice. All right, so that's just playing the slice once. Or you hear gaps in that. So this is, if you go to ping pong or loop, this is quite nice, because if you get it double speed, then it will just repeat each one twice. And then you can change the speed. Now it's playing the slices in reverse. So this is all stuff that Jakob mentioned in his video that you could do with this dead plugin of his. So that's where that comes in. You can do that in Drambo. So hopefully you can see the difference between pitch and speed. Like obviously speed slows it down to nothing, whereas pitch just changes the pitch. So you can actually combine them to get to the same place. Like for example, see that's actually, the pitch is in the center, but it's doubling. So if I slow down a bit with the speed, it means that if the knob's in the center, it's now correct. So yeah, and then if you hear any clicking, you can change the fade in amount, and if it's going slow enough that you can actually hear that fade in. Yeah. So as you add the fade in, it starts to sound like it's almost sidechained or something. So yeah, I'll add this to the other video. Now, that's pretty much it for now. I have put in NanoKontrol 2 functionality into this, which you'll see in the video that I'm going to slice in the end. The video was created for last week's Koala Beatcast flip challenge. And basically all of the controls that I've just shown you here, apart from the free and sync, are available directly on the NanoKontrol with light feedback. So I'll show that, and then if you have any questions, I can do a separate video describing how to use that. But it's basically exactly the same. The lights for the top two rows, so the solo and mute buttons, are the 16 buttons. Everything else is free for you to map however you want. So it's quite nice because you can use faders and knobs for any other function. In the case of the video that I'm going to show, the bottom row is with sequences. And yeah, so if you have any questions or suggestions, let me know. If you like this sort of thing and want to know more, then hit subscribe and like, and consider buying me a coffee over at the coffee page, where I'll actually put the NanoKontrol mapping, because you need to actually get the hardware mapped in the same way that I've got it mapped, unless you know what you're doing. Because in Mosaic you could actually edit the code and change the mapping to basically use any controller you want. But for ease of use, you can just use my mapping, and that'll be available over my coffee page. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.